Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to one of the pre-recorded interviews as part of the Ayurveda Masterclass Program Open House. Laura and I are hosting um, a group of sessions to really introduce you to some of the most phenomenal instructors you're going to find anywhere, maybe in the world. And I don't want to overstate that, but it is true. These are really incredibly gifted teachers. These are the faculty that make up the Masterclass program. And today we have with us the esteemed David Crow, who is our instructor for the Ayurvedic aromatherapy course. He, of course, is a very broad and deep well of knowledge on all things Ayurveda, also Chinese medicine, essential oils. He is the founder of Floricopia, which is an incredible essential oil company that's been around for many years. He's been in this wellness industry for 40 years, and he is a deep, deep source of knowledge on everything related to Ayurveda, herbal medicines, essential oils, and really speaks to the depth of traditional medicines from many places around the world, not just India, but also Central and South America, Africa, Taiwan, Burma, Nepal, India. So, David, thank you for joining us today. We're really, really, really grateful to have your time.
Thank you, James, for inviting me. Laura, nice to see you here.
So I thought we would spend just a few minutes just sort of talking through what your role in the Savanti team is and what you're teaching, and see if we can dig a little deeper into the various topics that you're offering. And Laura, do you have any thoughts on what questions we might run by David?
I would love to ask David some questions. David, I agree with James that you're a phenomenal teacher and that you have a unique approach and insights to plant wisdom. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your course, the one that you teach with Savanti. What do you cover and what is the essence of your teachings?
Nice. Okay. The course is titled Ayurvedic Aromatherapy, and that implies several different things. So, first of all, to sum up the content, what we are doing is two primary things. It's a class that happens over 3 full days, and we have done this every year now for 7 years, and there are 7 primary modules that happen in those 3 days. Now, the term Ayurvedic aromatherapy might evoke different ideas for people, but the two primary concepts with that term is, first of all, what is done in Ayurveda that constitutes aromatherapy? And then second, how do we use the Ayurvedic system, the cosmology and the terminology and the principles and the concepts to translate the use of essential oils and aromatherapy into an Ayurvedic approach? So the first question is what we cover in the beginning of the class. In other words, how is Ayurveda aromatic? And that is a beautiful subject to explore because Ayurveda is aromatherapy. Really, that's the simple answer, is that virtually everything in Ayurveda smells good. Virtually everything has aromatic plants in it. So if you go to an Ayurvedic treatment center, a resort, a spa, a clinic, the first thing you'll notice is the fragrance when you walk in, and that's because the medicated oils are cooked with aromatic plants. There are aromatic plants that are used in the steam treatment, the herbs that are formulated into pills and powders and ointments and jellies and jams. Every single form of Ayurvedic medicine contains aromatic plants. And that means that the essential oils are being used because the aromatic plants contain the essential oils as the primary active constituent. So Ayurveda then is actually a form of aromatherapy, and we get the benefits through the treatments and through the use of the herbs. But there is no real counterpart for the contemporary definition of aromatherapy. So the contemporary definition of aromatherapy is we have these essential oils, and then we use them for their aromatic benefits, and that's aromatherapy. But in Ayurveda, the essential oils are not used like that. And that's somewhat of a paradox because India is one of the world's largest producing regions of essential oils for all kinds of purposes, perfumery and for the contemporary aromatherapy purposes and so forth. Now, we start with this idea that Ayurveda is aromatherapy. And in that, what we find is that there are all of these ways that medicines are administered. And from that, we can actually learn how to use essential oils safely. We can learn that there are all of these medicated oils that are prepared, and we can actually use those oils, like something famous like Mahanarayan oil. We can use a classical Ayurvedic oil as a base to put essential oils into. So we're actually learning how to combine classical Ayurvedic aromatic medicines with contemporary essential oil uses. So we learn safe uses of essential oils if we study the treatment methods of Ayurveda. And this is a really fundamental part of what we need to know about essential oil use, is they're highly, highly concentrated and they can hurt people. They have hurt a lot of people through improper uses, which is mostly just fraudulent marketing. But what we do then is we look at how does Ayurveda use aromatic plants, and that's the beginning. Then we move into the cosmology, the terminology, the principles of Ayurveda, because really Ayurveda is a system of defining and classifying and categorizing how to use everything, how to use foods, how to use herbs, how to use essential oils if we want. And therefore, what we do is we take the principles of Ayurveda and we ask a basic question. We say, how can we define essential oils? Because essential oils are relatively new. They have not been widely available until fairly recently. They were all used in these aromatic plant forms like we find in Ayurveda. But now we have these highly concentrated extracts of aromatic plants. What do we want to do with them? How do we want to use them? And so we can go to Ayurveda and we find that, well, we've got all of these concepts. Let's go through and let's study essential oils and learn what they are in Ayurvedic terms. And so the course is basically how we do that, what we do with that. We study essential oils as prana. What does that mean? Well, it means that we can define essential oils using the term prana. And that gives us all kinds of valuable information about how to incorporate it into treatments. We can study the use of essential oils in relation to the 15 sub-doshas. That's a big part of the program. And that teaches us how to use essential oils according to the different aspects of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in a very detailed, clinically oriented way. And that tells us a lot about what essential oils are and how to use them safely. We can use concepts like Ojas and Agni and Soma and Ama. And we go through basically, and we just take these Ayurvedic terms that are the foundational structure of Ayurvedic medicine. And we say, what does Ayurveda say about contemporary use of essential oils? Not just how to use them safely in these kind of classical methods, but also how can we understand essential oils and aromatherapy according to this Ayurvedic terminology? That is a brief summation of the program.
It's beautiful. You know, when you're speaking about how India is such a prolific producer of flowers and plants and essential oils, I was thinking about the sandalwood, the marigolds, the rose, and the jasmine that is often used in sacred ceremony. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's a beautiful example of an industry. I was really struck by this in my travels in India, uh, many journeys and in different areas to study plant medicine, to study Ayurveda, and to study distillation and aromatherapy. And that included a lot of visits to the herb, to the flower farms, the herb farms, to the sandalwood forests, seeing the botanical sources, the environments that these plants come from. And one of the things that I was very struck by was the flower farms and the flower markets that are in every small and big city all over India. And this really got my interest because of the role of flowers in Indian culture everywhere. So the revelation that came out of it to me after talking to many different farmers and seeing what these flowers primarily were being used for garlands and for offerings, you know, and festivities. I was really intrigued by what is the role of flowers in India. And what I learned was that it is an industry that supports millions and millions of people, and it has absolutely no purpose whatsoever except aesthetic. And that's a wonderful thing to consider, that you can actually have an entire agricultural industry that does nothing but produce beauty for religious purposes. And so the farmers all said, well, the flowers are our most lucrative crop. And that's because they're so widely used. But then from the aromatic standpoint, I was also very impressed with my visits to the sandalwood forests, which are in various areas of South India that I visited, and seeing how the old trees, like the sandalwood trees and the agarwood trees, these trees are the foundation of agroforestry. They are basically ways that we can preserve ecosystems. So it was a wonderful visit to places like the Cardamom Hills and seeing how this understory of cardamom plants grows in relation to these old growth trees that preserve the ecosystem. And the Cardamom Hills have been producing cardamom for centuries and centuries, and those trees are still there, the same ones. And they're covered with black pepper vines, and they're, you know, basically the forest produces wealth. So that's a really good example of another aspect of aromatic plants is the ecological preservation and the sustainability part of it.
Beautiful. I
Wow.
think what you're showing, you're demonstrating is how profoundly unique your insight is, right? So that students of Savanti get such unique insight, such a unique integration and understanding of these two sciences of Ayurveda and aromatherapy. It's brilliant.
I emphasize that when we are using Ayurvedic medicine, we should be knowledgeable about where the plants come from, because Ayurveda is a plant-based medical system. And the plant-based, all the plant-based medical systems have all of these different dimensions to them that practitioners should know about. I mean, I was a perfect example of this. You know, I came out of all of my training in acupuncture college, and I hadn't even met a plant, you know, and here I was supposed to be a trained herbalist, and all I had experience with was these, you know, dried things in a drawer, and I had never actually met the plants. And so this is a very important aspect of classical training, is to meet the plants and to meet the environment that they grow in. And this starts to open up a much deeper understanding of, I guess, what we could call like the cosmological chemistry that's in the plant, because Ayurveda describes plant functions. And this is one of the things that we explore when we look at the essential oils, according to Ayurvedic terminology, is that the essential oils can be described in terms of Agni and Soma, in terms of sunlight and moonlight. And basically, essential oils are distilled sunlight and moonlight, and so are herbal medicines. And then we say, well, how did the plants concentrate sunlight? And we find that, okay, photosynthesis is driven by sunlight. And Ayurveda describes all of this. It's just that it's kind of hidden, it's kind of implied in the terminology. We have to explore and kind of find these hidden dimensions of Ayurveda that are there. But in Ayurvedic herbology, the plants are described as being made of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space. And that's absolutely correct. And then from that comes a system of taste. That's another aspect that we look at in the course. How do we describe essential oils according to the system of taste? Rasa, virya, vipak, and prabhav, the taste and the post-digestive effect and so forth. How do we describe essential oils that way? Well, it's very difficult because we don't eat essential oils. And, that's where all of the damage is coming from, is people ingesting them undiluted. Therefore, what we see, a very clear example, if a person takes an essential oil undiluted, and a real common injury happens from this fraudulent marketing about, we can take oregano oil directly on the tongue. Well, that's a really good example of highly concentrated Agni, all right? It's pure sunlight. If you put a drop of oregano oil on your tongue, it will create an organoleptic physiological response. It's painfully burning. Okay, that's how Ayurveda developed its base of knowledge, was through body sensations, through awareness of what things are doing. So we can't take the essential oils, but we can learn that there are plants that are warming, and that means that they have more sunlight in them. And there are plants that are cooling, and that means that they have more moonlight in them. And we can take this study of what the plants are, and we can see that actually Ayurveda is telling us that plants are part of this cosmology of energies and elements. And we can understand that, okay, what we're really using here is we're using earth for healing, and we're using water for healing. We're using sunlight and moonlight for healing, and prana, life force, for healing. And then that same cosmology that describes taste and the functions and the fragrances and the effects of the plants is the same system we use to describe the physiology of the body. And therefore, what we're really doing in Ayurveda is we're just learning about, this plant has this type of elemental balance, and your body has this type of elemental imbalance, and let's put them together. So that's a very interesting aspect of Ayurveda that I encourage students to think about, and try to provide good examples of this to stimulate their interest in going deeper into Ayurveda, because Ayurveda doesn't really explain this in a lot of ways. We have to experience this through our own senses. And this is why Ayurveda is so profound, is that it is a system of cosmology. It's a system that we can perceive ourselves through our own senses. And if we go deeply enough into it, then we start to discover all of these dimensions that are there, but we just haven't really explored them much. So that's a very big interest that I have personally, and try to stimulate students and encourage students to think about these things.
David, is that what you refer to as ecological spirituality?
It's a very big part of Ayurveda. Ecological spirituality is a term that I have used to describe what I think Ayurveda is. So, I started off by saying, well, Ayurveda is aromatherapy, but we can also say, as you know, that Ayurveda is spirituality as well, because Ayurveda overlaps with different spiritual practices so clearly, and it comes from the same root sources. I mean, you know, Ayurveda comes from the Vedas, and the oldest Vedas actually were scriptures that were written, hymns to Soma. And Soma was an entheogenic plant. And so Ayurveda was originally inspired by these invocations, these songs of offering and gratitude and praise to a hallucinogenic plant. And nobody knows what it is, but that's an example of ecological spirituality. Then, well, that's a big subject. I better keep it brief here. But basically, in Ayurveda, we see that there is a direct correlation, many links between the lineages of medicine and the lineages of spiritual practice. And so we find, and this is universal also, this is also in Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine, shamanic medicine, everywhere. We find that plants have always been harvested with reverence and prayer and prepared with mantra and song and all of these things. So spiritual practices have always been part of the medicine making process. And then administering the medicines have always been associated closely with prayer, visualization, blessing, and so forth. And I've seen some of these ceremonies, for example, in the Tibetan Buddhist lineages, I've seen ceremonies that go on for 7 days where hundreds and hundreds of people are reciting mantras that are all being directed into this big pot of herbs to baptize it, you see. So we see that Ayurveda is very closely related to the Vedas, of course. And so the philosophy and the practices are very much connected, just as Chinese medicine is very closely related to the spiritual practices of Qigong and Taoism and alchemy. And so this is another aspect of Ayurveda that I am very interested in. And it's ecological in nature, you see, because if we're talking about the elements that are in the plants, that's ecological. And then if we are blessing them with mantra, that's spiritual. So using the plants in a spiritual way is ecological spirituality. And in a certain way, we can approach that all the way to the medical side. And Ayurveda gives us beautiful terms like prana. And prana has all of these different levels of translation. Prana means the flow of intelligence. Well, where does that come from? It tells us very clearly prana emanates from Brahma, from the absolute. And so therefore, we can make a link and we can say, all right, what are my body sensations? Or nerve current. What is nerve current? It's prana. Where did prana come from? It came from the absolute. Well, the absolute then is manifest in our body. That's ecological spirituality. And then they say further, another definition of prana is that it's a manifestation of prajnatman, which basically means the intelligence of our soul is manifest in the physical body. To me, that's a real direct way to come face to face with creation unfolding inside our own physiology. And therefore, this has been very helpful for me to basically realize that all of these spiritual practices, even though in Buddhism they get very abstract and mental, and in Tantra they get very mythological and archetypal, and in Taoism they become very esoteric and alchemical, but everything is body-based, and everything ultimately is based on realizing the deeper dimensions of who we are. And so Ayurveda is just full of these terms and concepts that go back to Vedas, you see, and that's totally linked to Tantra and totally linked to all of these classical lineages. They have so much in common, but really spirituality, all spirituality is ecological in a certain basic way. Thank you for asking.
Beautiful.
I'm glad you asked that, James, because I was curious about that. Reminds me of Yata Pinde Tata Brahmande, like we are the microcosm of the whole. That's so beautiful. I'm so moved. This is such an exciting interview. Did you have any other questions, James?
I think we touched on everything. I mean, I want to keep going for 3 more hours, but
I do have one more question. Do you have time for me to ask?
I do, certainly.
Okay. Just one question for the people watching this and listening. Do you have anything that they could, just a little something that they could take home that might help their health, might help their mood? Just a little example that somebody could do at home as a takeaway.
Of course. Let's do something with aromatherapy. I'm sure that people have, that a lot of people have some exposure to aromatherapy already, maybe a diffuser, maybe you have a little lavender oil or some eucalyptus oil or something like that.
Mhm.
Now, one of the basic practices that I teach in the course and that we do is what we could call contemplative aromatherapy. And this is something that you can do, and it has two great benefits. All we do is we inhale the fragrance of an essential oil very mindfully, very slowly, carefully. Now, don't overdo it, because if you have a bottle of an essential oil and you just sit there and breathe it over and over again, you can start to irritate your sinuses. But just take a bottle of lavender oil, open it up, and just pass it under your nose and breathe it. Now, you may think, well, all right, this has some relaxing effects. I like the fragrance, or maybe you can breathe the eucalyptus and you can feel it opens the lungs a little bit. That's the beginning of the process. And that's about as far as most people go with herbal medicine. They just take things. They don't really delve into what's happening. And if we use our mind and pay attention closely to what's happening, then two very profound dimensions open up. First of all, we discover that our attention potentizes the effects of the herbs inside the body. And this is a remarkable thing. It has to do basically with how our mind is energy and how our attention focuses that energy and how that energy changes our physiology. And this is the basis of biofeedback therapy. You know, if you pay very close attention to one part of your body, you can change your circulation just by paying attention to it. So if you breathe the lavender oil slowly and deeply, but you do it very mindfully, really pay attention to the sensations as it comes in and affects the sinuses and then the lungs, and then feel how it spreads into circulation and feel how it enters into the brain and feel how it affects the nervous system. If you really pay attention to it, then you start to receive all of these body sensations that you weren't paying attention to before. Now, the question comes, what's actually happening if you are really receiving a higher level of body sensations? That means that you're potentizing it, okay? It's getting stronger. And otherwise, your attention just wasn't doing anything with it. So this is the first profound lesson, is that when we pay close attention to an essential oil in a contemplative aromatherapy way, or herbs or food, then basically we can feel their effects in the body. And by feeling them at a deeper level, we are potentizing their effects. This is very profound because we have the capacity to make herbal medicine infinitely stronger in our physiology using our mind. So that's the first lesson. But then the second lesson is, if you pay close attention to the body sensations that the essential oil is producing, you are also inherently paying close attention to the aroma of the plant. And guess what that means? That means you're paying close attention to the sunlight that created that fragrance. You're paying close attention to the moon and the water and the soil and the genetic intelligence and the immune intelligence and the prana. You are paying close attention, not just to your body, but to the plant also. And that's where we really start to learn what the plants do. We pay very, very close attention to their prana, to their 5 elements, to their fragrance, to their taste. And then we start to really understand herbal medicine, both what the plant is cosmologically and what it is doing in the body physiologically. And we just take the whole experience and magnify it and discover all of these things that we normally don't even notice. So thank you for asking.
That's brilliant. Truly, this is like the demonstration of the brilliance of Ayurveda handled by a brilliant mind. And how talk about potentiating it can be. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you for giving us your time. And for all of you who are watching, I hope you took something away of great insight and practice. And we're really, really grateful, David, to have you on our team. Really, 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 really fortunate. You're a gift.
And thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it and enjoy teaching. And thank you to everybody listening. And thank you also, Laura.
Yeah.
Honored to be with you guys both.
All right. Well, we will see, hopefully, if you're watching, hopefully we'll see you in the MasterClass program. At the very least, take David's course. Drop in if you have to.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Take care, everybody.